I will. And the agenda. And we have someone from the public who's joining.
Where is mine?
Let me put that.
Anna.
And make sure the public is muted. Please, David.
Yep. Not the yeah, the public has been really good for all the times we've been doing this.
Yeah, it's just sometimes there's background noise and sometimes there's a more contentious things. It's sometimes people have just a desire to speak up, and we need to keep it. Okay, so here we are. We're all recording. We'll call it to order. This is the subcommittee meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning. And Susan, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Agnesi,
Present.
Mr. Sadi,
Present.
Chairman Quash,
I am here also.
and we also have Mr. Salkis and Mr. Stephen Harris.
And who else?
We have a member of the public, Donna Dutko, and in the back
we have Ms. Sue LaFond as well.
Oh, that's right.
If we are identifying everyone, let's make sure we get it.
Well, in that case, there's also Asta
Oh,
And George.
and
could be
George.
Trixie.
Kitty cat.
He comes in.
Okay, so first order of business, David, is
Oh, do you want me to put the want me to put the
just for one more second, just so I can read it off for the record.
there we go.
So proposed text update for 6.2.1. And David, if you will take this piece forward.
Okay, we have regulations about what which prohibit enlarging, extending, and altering non-conforming buildings and uses of land, and it's pretty clear, people understand it, but on occasion people have inquired about, well, can't we go up in the air? Can't we do this and that? Stephen did some research. We talked to the city attorney, and there's some language that's proposed that the city attorney really likes, and Stephen can talk about it more if Stephen would like, but it's to sort of fix this. We have always interpreted our regulations in the way that this language is being proposed, but because this language actually isn't there, the thinking is let's just have that language in there so there's no doubt.
So that we don't have to explain it every time.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you would, Stephen, just give us, your 2 or 3 paragraphs on what your experience is and where there is a problem that needs to be solved.
Well, people, I have a single family house. It's 2 feet from the lot line. It's a 1-story house. Can I build 2 more stories? The regulations don't permit that. But then you have to explain to them why. Well, that's because, you're increasing the nonconformity because there's more square footage, more volume inside the setback. Yes, but it's over the same footprint. Yeah, but the regulations don't permit it. So the new language just throws language in. This is including a vertical expansion, so we don't have to stop and explain what the regulation says.
So let me just ask a couple of questions and throw out some, what ifs. So I have a house, and it's near the water, and I have a bungalow, and it's a legal non-conforming, and it's 1 story, and every other house in the area is 3-story. Am I now allowed to have 3 stories, or now am I prohibited from having 3 stories and have that 35 feet to the middle of the ridge to the rake edge?
If your bungalow is sitting on the sand, you can elevate it by right to get it out of the flood zone.
But
No,
also,
I'm talking about, let's say,
And to continue the thought though, so if you wanted to do that, that's perfectly fine. If it's a single-story bungalow and you wanted to add another story or two, and some part of that building is inside of a setback, you would need a variance for just that part of the building that's in the setback. So portions of building that are conforming to the setbacks are fine. You can go as high as 35 feet.
Okay, so what we have is, we have a legal non-conforming structure that is in, say, a R 7500 and it's less than 7500, but the setbacks are good. Can they go up?
Yes, if the house meets the setbacks, then you can go up to the height limit of 35 feet. This regulation only pertains to portions of buildings and uses that are non-conforming.
Well, the whole building's non-conforming because it's it's a 5,000 square foot lot in a 7,500 square foot zone.
Let's say all right, here's another example. Say you have a 5,000 square foot machine shop in an R12-5 zone, okay? It's a non-conforming building. It's a single-story building. It's conforming the way, it's legal non-conforming as it is. Let's say, the guy says, you know what? I want to add 2 more floors to my machine shop and make it, 35 feet high and triple my floor space. Well, that would be an increase in a non-conformity that you can't do.
Without a variance.
Without a variance, yes. You can always get a
So-
variance.
Yeah, so the variance, the hardship would be that the original building and the footprint of that building was built before zoning could have prevented it.
Correct. So as it is, it's legal non-conforming. The use was there first, the building that it's in was there first, then the zone landed on top of it.
So right now, if somebody came in right now, would you tell them you need a variance, or would you say, go ahead and do it?
No, if somebody came in now and they showed me a survey, and let's say it's a single family house in a single family zone that's 2 feet off the lot line in my example previously. So it's a ranch house, 2 feet off the lot line. It was there before the regulation, so it's existing non-conforming. It can stay as it is. And let's say the setback is 10 feet on that side of the house. So 8 feet of the house is inside the setback. I would tell them for that portion of the building inside the setback, you need a variance. For the portion of the house that's not in the setback, you can go up to 35 feet.
Okay. Anybody, questions, Robert or John?
And Mark,
Mr.
Mark
If-
also joined us, just to let you know.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
So I do have some questions for Steve. Why are we singling out single family houses in the proposed text? Where they used to be exempt, and now you're singling out single family houses and say that they cannot.
Yeah, the existing text, that's a funny little clause in there because it refers to where a single family house is a non-conforming use, such as an industrial zone. So it's a factory zone. It doesn't allow residential, but that clause says that if you have a single family house that's a non-conforming use, like in an industrial zone, you can expand that. And that's I get the hunch that was written for the benefit of somebody decades ago.
And to answer your question, Bob, this doesn't apply just to single family homes. This applies to everything.
Yeah, any non-conforming use. You can't expand a non-conforming use. That's well-settled Connecticut law.
Except that the existing text said, except in the case of single family homes.
Yes,
We're moving it.
that's a funny clause. I get the feeling that was written for somebody's benefit decades ago.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I've looked at this and I appreciate the comments that you're making, but I just think that's unfair. So you have, as Chairman Quish pointed out, you have a piece of property that is, say, 15 feet high when the height could be 35 and everybody around him is high. This property can't be done because of the text change.
It's a non-conforming use.
You just get a variance.
It can't be, Steve, that's what bothers me. You said it's a legal non-conforming use, correct?
Yes.
That's the term you used. And now you're saying that it's not legal, but it's because it's not conforming. I'm just trying to understand the language.
If, let's say you have a 4-unit apartment building in a single family zone, okay? It doesn't allow 4-unit apartment buildings. And you wanted to triple the size of that building. You can't do that because it's a non-conforming use.
But you said before it's illegal.
You
It's
already have the
illegal
benefit of having
non-conforming property.
the owner already has the benefit of having four apartments he can rent. He has a benefit everybody else doesn't have.
Let's also look at the words. The words, it's not just use, it's extend, enlarge, or alter a structure or a part of a structure. So that's why this is important. So
Right.
the
So-
part of the structure that is perfectly fine, pre-existing, non-conforming, legal use, have a great day. You
Right.
want to add to it.
So basically what we're sticking our heels in the sand is we have a bungalow on a street of 2.5-story residence. And even if you had to raise it, you were only allowed to raise the 1-story bungalow if you had to raise it. But for flood reasons, which would be exempted from this. But so you have a street with everybody already did something. They're much bigger than you are, either in the flood zone or not. And you are 1 foot off the lot line. We're down at Silver Beach on Cooper Street or whatever.
Yeah.
And so everyone else has already built their second floor and attic. And now you can't do it without a variance because only the existing structure as it is today, or whenever we enact this, is legal non-conforming. If you went up a foot, if you just wanted 10-foot ceilings and you wanted to go up a couple of feet, you would not be able to do it unless you got a variance.
Yeah, most of what we see on the beach is people tearing down bungalows and building brand new houses that are much bigger. So they're clearing the lot.
And they're getting variances.
And they're getting variances for their side yard setbacks because the lots are, 35, 40 feet wide. And they go up to 35 feet because they're clearing the lot. They're getting rid of the non-conforming setback. They're building much bigger houses and they're getting a variance.
Yeah, and that is totally what we're seeing. And, then the debate comes, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think obviously increase tax revenue and, whatever, some benefits, and it crowds up everything a little bit too. So that's the negative. But so if we do this and we feel that the variance is almost a given because the hardship is indigenous to the site no matter what, then why do we burden the homeowners? Because let's think of it mostly for homeowners. Why do we burden the homeowners with hiring a lawyer, going to the zoning board of appeals if it's really kind of a no harm, no foul? I mean, so I'm not seeing a problem that we're solving yet.
Well, maybe just to circle back to the meaning of the regulation, it's to clarify what's already not allowed. You're already not allowed to expand a non-conforming use. Go back to the 4-unit apartment building in a single family zone. Let's say you have 4 units, those 4 units are in a 5,000 square foot building. And you want these units to be much bigger, so you want a 15,000 square foot building. Well, that's expanding that non-conforming use. That's not permitted under our current regulation. It wouldn't be permitted under the proposed regulations, and it's not permitted under Connecticut law.
And what this
So
is,
if it's not permitted now, then we can
Well, the language.
wash our hands and walk away from it.
The language proposed language just clarifies that it also includes a vertical expansion.
right, it clarifies, people are going to the ZBA anyway. For all those houses that you mentioned, they're going anyway. This just clarifies it because on occasion there were people who go, well, Well, I don't think it means that. Well, it does mean that. And in consultation with the city attorney, he's saying, yeah, we should adopt this language. Other municipalities have done this. The end result is the same. People are still going to go to the ZBA, but it just clarifies it so they don't spend time arguing with staff because
Yeah.
we have certain attorneys who will argue. And, you know,
Yeah, you know, and I get that. I just, what, you know, my instinct, and again, obviously, the members of this subcommittee and eventually the members of the full board are going to consider it, but I understand that clarity is a good thing and that it makes everything smoother for the city and you guys. But I also want to protect the individual, you know, the individual homeowner who,
and their neighbors. This is
Well,
about
non-conforming-
protecting not just them, but their neighbors who are
Right.
2 feet off of the line.
yeah, with a, with a 35, with a 35 height for their house, and there's a 17-foot height on the next house, and they want to, you know, yeah, that's, again, I think you understand
I hear
what
what you,
my instinct is. I don't think I understand the implications totally yet, but anyway, we're just talking about it now,
Well,
so.
again, this is about a non-conforming use. So it's a use that's not allowed in the zone. Those are already protected. What this regulation says is you can't expand that non-conforming use.
Right, but it's also is touching on, the use is fine, but the structure,
No, this regulation is about a non-conforming use, a use that's on the property but not allowed in the zone, like a 4-unit apartment building in a single-family zone.
it's also about the structure because that's the language.
Yeah, you can't increase the use, you can't increase the structure that the use is in because you're.
but so if there's a use that's
Increasing the
permitted,
use.
this will not affect it.
No, unless it is, again, you're increasing, you're raising, you know.
Exactly. So that's my point. You can't say it's only for a use if your next
Right, it's a
sentence
structure as
tells
well.
me that it's same use, it's an accepted use, it's a
Right.
permitted use, but now it's expanding the nonconformity because you're
Exactly.
going up 15 feet.
Exactly.
Okay, so I don't like that, is what I'm telling you. I think we're putting a burden on the homeowners. Now,
What about-
if you make it only about the use, that would be a different set of
Talking
potential
about the homeowner.
outcomes.
We're talking about a use that's not allowed in the zone.
Okay, but then I just asked again, if it also applies to a use that is permitted, but it's an increase of the nonconformity because you're going up. Single family house going from 15 to 35 feet, is it affected or not?
There's a
Another-
David
separate-
said yes. Are you saying no, Stephen?
there's
Another
this
way,
regula- Whatever, go, David, go.
another way of looking at it, Jim, for this example, we're talking about going up, but we're also talking about going out. And the zoning regulations aren't there to let anybody do anything. They're there to protect you, the homeowner, and your neighbors.
Okay,
So
simple
are-
question, simple
Sure.
question.
Sure.
Is it just use or is it use and structure?
It's the use and the structure that the use is in. You can't, if you expand the 5,000 square foot 4-unit apartment building in a single family zone to be 15,000 square feet, you're expanding the use and the structure that contains the use. You can't do either.
Okay, that's one thing. What about the 800 square foot bungalow that wants to go up 2 stories?
They want to add on, they want a single story, they want to add on 2 floors, right?
Yes,
If that building, any portion of that building that's inside of a setback would require a variance.
okay, so it does
Because you have
affect,
non-conforming
it
uses.
affects, it
There-
doesn't
there-
only affect the use, it affects a conforming
That's a
use,
different
but
regulation.
non-conformity on a legal non-conforming structure. Okay, so
This-
that's,
this
now I
regulation-
understand it. Now I understand it.
Yeah, there's a separate regulation for non-conforming structures. This regulation is about non-conforming uses. 621 is non-conforming uses. 632 or 631 is about non-conforming structures.
Yeah, you know what, my instinct, and again, I'm just one voice here, is that I don't like it, it's putting handcuffs It's, you know, we're looking for density, we're looking for ways to mitigate too much regulation. I'm personally gonna not support this change at this point, but Robert and John have their voices and they can voice them and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, just to clarify, what you guys are saying is the city is already interpreting the statute in this way to what the proposed text change is, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Unless
so
confronted,
Proposed language just, the proposed language just clarifies.
Yep.
For the
I don't
sake
think
of,
it's accurate,
for the
but
sake of applicants and staff.
Yep.
What it means so that we don't have to go running to the Supreme Court decisions that define all this and lay out what the law is.
so in other words, we're not changing anything. We're just recognizing the law as it is.
Yes,
well,
Okay,
John, you
great.
know what, but did you see, and I hear Stephen saying yes, and David supporting it, and the city attorney saying yes, but I don't really agree with that. I think there are people, if it was that simple, we wouldn't even have a potential change. So I think what we're doing is we're putting a restriction on single family homes. You come back with something, a non-conforming uses, and then, you know, that's, and non-conforming uses only, then I would think differently about it. But anyway, you understand it your way, and that's fine, and we'll, you know, we'll vote tonight on whether we send this to the whole board or not, and whatever the vote is, I'll stand by, and I'll can voice my opinion at the full board's discussion. But I don't, it doesn't feel right for me, and so anyway, we will at one point, if Robert, if you have something you'd like to
Sure.
share, if not, we'll hear a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Quish. I fully agree with your position. I am against this ability to restrict homeowners to enlarge their homes, make them better. I understand there's a concern about setbacks, but these are houses that were built before zoning even occurred. And when I saw the change taking out the single family homes, I would not support that at all.
Just as a matter of reference, you folks, the two of you are on the shoreline where you see a particular version of this. This is all over the city. This isn't just a shoreline issue. This isn't just an old house issue. This just is an issue where structures have been built and regulations over time have changed. And it's clarifying, again, something that we do in practice, which again was recommended by the city attorney's office and conforms to, the case law. So, all it's doing is making things clear. We're not preventing anyone from doing anything, because chances are excellent that if they're doing this, they're going to be going to the ZBA anyway for something else that's related to their project. They're still going to need their surveys. They're still going to need their site plans just to build what they're doing anyway. So the materials aren't going to be any different. It's just asking a board and having the neighbors who also have rights to, speak up and, whether or not that proposed change impacts them negatively or not. And then the ZBA, makes that determination.
Well, I hear that, and I know your position, and I respect it. I just, politely disagree. So
I hear you. Yeah.
Let's we'll do an informal vote. I'll move that we send this to the full board for review.
I second.
Okay, all those any discussion?
I think we've had our discussion already.
Yep. I mean, unless you wanted more. Those in favor of sending it to the full board, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Nay. So we have 2 no, 1 yes. That's Bob and Quish.
I believe Mark Macho also voted yes.
Where's Mark?
He's there.
Oh, hello, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I didn't see you there. Do you have something you want to just, contribute to the conversation? I'm sorry I didn't call you out earlier because I didn't see you on my screen.
No, that's all good. Yeah, no, nothing to really contribute for this. Yeah.
Okay, so 2-2 still fails. But we can revisit it.
I think we ought to revisit when we have a full subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, the 2-2 fail is for our big board. I don't know that did we ever really adopt or need Robert's rules for our subcommittee? I mean, that's your call, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if this subcommittee is split, I mean, why not move it on to the board and maybe.
Yeah, but we're not for it. We're not for it, though. That's the thing, Bob. It's like, and again, Robert's rules, we don't have it. If you want to come back and if you listen to any of the objections and you want to address it for the next subcommittee meeting, and if you want to come back with clarification from Robert's rules, then I'm happy to hear it again.
Okay, no, yeah, okay. I mean,
they're not going to shut the door on it right now.
Okay.
I'm saying that 2-2 is not a majority to move it, so we won't move it forward at this time. But possibly with a few tweaks, it could address some of the concerns and still address a solution to some of the problems that you guys face, and that's fine. I really don't have a problem with making your lives easier in general. I just don't want to do that at the expense of, whether it's just people with small lots but so next thing is updating multifamily unit sizes. If you want to walk us through this, please, David.
Sure. Give me 2 seconds here. Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. Okay, unit size. Well, while this is booting up, basically the legislature made some changes to the land use regulations, which prohibit basically having calling out unit sizes, minimum unit sizes, and we have those minimums all over our regulations. So Stephen worked very hard in going through the regulations and pulling out those sections and getting rid of any language that specifically calls out minimum unit sizes, again, which conflicts with state statute. So as an example, the R5 RA, we have minimum, this case.
So what does this actually look like? Do we need like 45 different changes, or can we have one change that says, by the way, we are affecting 12 different areas and we are just substituting our existing language with what the state mandates, and then it automatically just edits everything in the document?
I think what we have to do, or what you could do, is endorse the documentation we gave to you, because every zone is different. I mean,
no.
Yeah, I mean, basically, in the very first one here, we're limiting. We have minimum sizes for single family homes.
You don't have to take each individual section as an individual vote. You can just
good.
The entire document.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I have to go through, and delete, add, delete each individual.
So it's a broad brush. Once we approve it, it goes through whatever process. Everything is automatically changed.
Yes. So we would.
I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think this is good work, because we are looking at, in general, smaller. Again, the tiny home concept is just one, but micro living and ADUs and the whole world is getting smaller in terms of living quarters. So this is laborious, especially if you're a developer or something. It's like there's like a lot of different things. I mean, it's this is stuff that if we were to do a broad look at all of our regulations, we'd be fixing some of this stuff in a whole thing. But taking it one at a time. This is not even one at a time. This is getting a lot of work done. So
Yeah,
I
this-
appreciate what the work that you have done, and I support it fully. I don't know about anybody
This
else.
dramatically simplifies everything for both us and developers and property owners.
Yeah, I think it's great work.
To be clear, this is just getting us in line with what state statute mandates, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so in any case, we would have to be doing this.
yeah.
Okay, understood.
So, Mr. Quish, I have some couple questions if I can ask them.
Yeah, and it just pipe up.
Thanks to Steve. Looks like a very good job. For example, we start at the R5A and it says the minimum required by the building code. And then we're taking out 625 square feet. Do you have an idea right now what the minimum required by the building code would be, like in a recent building code?
Yes, I've spoken to the building inspectors several times. And the minimum room size in a building, in the building code is 70 square feet per room minus the kitchen. So you could build a tiny house if you wanted to.
Yeah, because and I'm just following that down under the 5A, the right below it, it's called design standards for planned elderly. So it says 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and officially these are apparently in our code right now.
Yes.
What
Those-
about
Those
what
are no
about
longer
3-bedroom
valid.
or 4-bedroom? Are those mentioned at all?
Pardon?
3-bedroom units or 4-bedroom units, they mention at all?
Doesn't
Not in the change in the state law, which is why we have to take away those minimums.
Okay. And so I really appreciate all the work that's done, but if there's an 830G application, would this kind of moot all this changing?
That's a good question. I would guess so because it's also another state law that says you can't, your minimum unit size has to match the building code, fire code, or other applicable code.
Yeah.
But they could have made smaller units anyway, right?
Yeah.
They could have just skirted any of these regulations. They could make a moot just by saying it's 830G. So they could build smaller units without this state reg if they thought they could rent them.
That's true too.
And the last thing that I have, and I know what it's like to go through this work, Steve. We're doing something a couple of years ago. Would this eliminate any further discussion of the auxiliary dwelling units? Because I know we have them attached right now, and there may be a further discussion that they may be detached. But do we have this anywhere? Because they talk about like a 1-family detached dwelling. Is there anything in here that would prohibit us considering ADUs in the future and maybe making them larger or smaller?
Well, accessory dwelling units are accessory to the principal structure. I'm not sure if the state law would apply to an accessory dwelling unit or not. That's a good question.
And again, if it's not attached, and I know that our rules do not allow it yet, but if it's something we're considering, we don't know the answer to that yet. Does that appear to be good?
So that would be great if we find that out before once we bring this up to the full board. If that question comes up, it would be great to have an answer for that.
Well, the real simple answer is no matter what the dwelling unit is, we can't have a minimum size. The building code will determine that. So the next question should be, can we have a maximum size? So,
Okay.
so
So you think the new state regulation will affect auxiliary dwelling units that are detached as well as what's listed here?
right. So for instance, under this regulation, we have we have the R5 through RA here. The minimum size of the living area of each type of unit shall be determined in accordance of. So if you had a 1-bedroom or efficiency accessory dwelling unit, the in-law apartment, right now under our regulations, it would have to be a minimum 450 square feet.
But
So-
now without this, we could put grandma in 15 square feet.
Well, not according to Stephen in the building code. It
Oh,
has to be at least 17 square feet or whatever it was.
But we cap
70.
it at 800.
70.
We
Yeah.
cap it at 800, so that's probably still good because that's a maximum, not a minimum.
Exactly.
And most of the ADUs that we're seeing now, they're between 600 and 750 square feet.
Yeah, and the last thing, if I could, please, we're looking at another possible change in the CDDs, and this one specifically the CDD 3. And I know it's part of our assessment of how we're going to create available and affordable housing. Does any of these changes, as we're aware of it, preclude what is possibly being considered and might go to the board on our next item on the agenda?
No, doesn't affect it at all, because it's the same thing. If we're adding now having dwellings in the CDD 3, you just can't have a minimum size that's above what the state says it should be, which is what the building code says.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect.
And then the reason I'm looking, I'm looking back and forth between the CDD 3.
Yeah.
And I don't see the CDD 3 in the proposed change on 8.2.
So,
Whereas, and is that because we're considering CDD 3 later on in the meeting?
it's because right now housing isn't allowed in the CDD 3.
Okay.
There's no
Right.
standard. With one
Yeah.
caveat, there's one caveat to that. And that is when the board approved the project on the Kmart site, which is the very last property in the CDD 3, right on the CDD 2, there's housing as part of that property as part of a special exception.
That was
So-
part of
Thank-
our
Thank
spot exercise and spot zoning.
So it won't affect that project. That project's already approved, and because it's a market-driven project, they want to provide something that the market wants, which would be probably more than any minimum we would have had looking at any of our zones. So
Right.
again, it won't affect it.
Okay, so without exception, we'll move this on to the full board.
I agree.
Mark, John,
Yeah,
I agree.
okay, so we'll move this one on. Next order of business,
Okay, there we go. Oh, look at that. It's the proposed text update for housing in the CDD 3. Okay, so let's go here.
and David, and I don't know if you can multitask like this, but can you, while we're talking about this, can you find the language from what was implemented as of last October in terms of sustainability, so we could look at that language while we discuss the next order of business?
Well, when you say implemented, you're talking about the statute?
Yeah, actually read the if you could pull up the statute so we could look at the language in the statute that allows us some
Sure.
leeway in sustainability.
I will try to do that, and yeah, the multitasking
Maybe
is
if Stephen can take the reins on discussing this, maybe that'll give you some bandwidth to try to look at see if we can find that other info.
sure. And it's funny you should use the word bandwidth, as my computer is very unhappy with everything that I'm doing. But let's see what I can pull up. Yeah. So oops, let me get out of here. Let me move this.
So Stephen, you want to grab the reins on the CDD 3? Mute. Stephen, you're still muted. Stephen, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. There's
Okay.
background noise. So it's currently, as you know, nothing's allowed, housing's not allowed in the CDD 3. So this would allow multifamily housing as defined in the back of the book. No change to the lot requirements, yard and open space or building requirements, because those have to be uniform across the zone. So we're adding housing in where housing is not currently permitted, which is a good thing. And I see this workforce housing incentive bonus, which is a carrot to allow developers to build more than what's permitted if they choose. And if they choose that, you know, then they get, if they choose to take the carrot, then they get to build more units. But they don't have to. They can build what they're allowed by right, or they can choose to take the carrot.
Gotcha. But so now they're not allowed anything, right? Or where are we now?
Nothing right now.
So we can, and again, I'm not saying this is not the right way to do it, but we can say that it has to be a minimum of 10%. And by the way, we're also giving you a change from 24 feet to 65. And we're also reducing the parking. And we also can, you know, the buffer strip could be contentious. You know, they could reduce the buffer if they had the proper trees or something. And I don't know what a maximum of 3.0 FAR exclusive of parking. What's FAR?
That's your floor area ratio. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Basically, that
so-
means you could build 3 times the total lot size.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So if your
John-
lot size is, if your lot size is 6,000 square feet, your building can be 18,000.
Gotcha. Understood. So there's two ways to look at it. I mean, first of all, we're given the carrot already by opening up the entire zone. So to make it optional, to me, is, I'm not sure it's bad. It's not getting us, it's not moving affordability. And I think 10%, again, I've always had this idea where 10% is fine, but if now you get over arbitrarily 20 units, that we should go to 15% or 12%. And I understand the developers have balked at that, and they say it will preclude any development at all. My point is that, you know, Milford being situated where it is and having the amenities that it does as a city is strong enough so that these projects, even with a 15, you know, if it's a larger project, 15 or even larger, you know, 20% affordability. And again, I'm not sure I'm right on these numbers, but I think we have a strong enough market to just go ahead and mandate it. I mean, I don't want to go backwards. You know, I don't think we're going to solve the 830G issue with these things, but we are going to solve an issue where the zone is calling out for some residential and some mixed use, you know, and it's going to be a benefit to providing, even if it's market rate, it's providing housing options, because, you know, single family homes are maybe not the option for everybody. They don't want to cut the grass. They're in and out. They're moving to this. They're going to the city or whatever they're doing. So I really don't want to stick my heels in the sand too deep on affordability, but I don't want to go backwards at all. To build 65 feet and not have any affordability, I think is.
Oh, no, they would have to. No, under the change, under 318.119 workforce housing, they could go up to 65%, 65 feet, which is 24 feet higher than they can now. So they can go up another 2 floors.
So that's the carrot. They could go.
Yeah, that's the carrot. They can build an extra 2 floors. They can reduce their parking by 25%. They can have a maximum floor to area ratio of 3.
Stephen, what do you think the downside is?
They can build the usual by right, which you're allowed anyway. But if they want
But they're not allowed to do anything now.
Yeah,
I mean,
if they want to have these little goodies down here, then they have to give us 10% of the units at affordability.
What's the downside of, instead of calling it a bonus, just saying, by the way, we're allowing housing in this, and these are the hows and whys, or that, you know, this is, if you want to build any housing at all, it has to meet these restrictions. I just want to know what the downside is instead of, I think the carrot is that we're now opening up an entire zone for you. So anyway,
no,
I could be wrong. I just want
the
your
entire
opinion.
zone is opened up. All of CDD three is opened up for the workforce housing. If they choose it.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Jim, looking at this, yeah, we have this line here, multifamily housing is defined. Well, we can get rid of this line and it can be just, we can just call it multifamily workforce housing. And then for multifamily workforce housing, providing a minimum, so that's exactly what you're asking for. It's right there. So you want
Yeah,
to do-
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so we just get rid of this up here. It's like, hey, you want to do housing in a zone, then you're creating workforce housing. And oh, by the way, in doing that, we're looking for a minimum of 10%. And for you wanting to do this, hey, we'll give you 24 feet of extra height. We'll give you a parking reduction. We'll give you this and that. We can talk about the buffer later. But yeah, that would do. It sounds like that's exactly what you're looking for.
But what if someone just wants to build a 3-unit apartment building? And leave it at that.
And if they build,
That's what multifamily is. It's three or more units.
yeah, and in that case, one of those units would have to be affordable.
What do
I
you
have
guys-
some,
what do you
I have
guys
some
think?
questions, Mr.
For the
Quish.
entire zone though? Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Would any-
Yeah,
How many developers will actually bite at that?
we don't know till we have it. Who realistically is going to go in and build a 3-family house in this zone? We can redefine that. And we could say it's not multifamily. We could call it something else that has a minimum number. But if under our current regulations, which defines multifamily, if they want to build a 3-family house, great, knock yourself out. But in this case, if it's 3-family, one of those units will be affordable, and that gives us 30% affordability. 33.3% affordability out of 3 units. So that's
And a couple of points for the other 2 units.
there you go.
I do have serious concerns about this. For one, I'm not certain that it's legal to do what is being suggested here in requiring this minimum number of affordable set-asides. It's come to my attention recently that there was a memo circulated by the city lawyer essentially questioning how the Sheets decision is going to impact this. This memo was never brought to the attention of the full board. Now, if the city lawyer has concerns about this, then I think this is something that needs to be addressed before we even begin discussions on affordability mandates. I for one, would like to see a neutral law firm brought in to deliver an opinion that we can actually rely on as to whether we can move forward with this at all.
Well, I would ask a constitutional scholar to weigh in on that. Mr. Sadi, you've taught constitutional law at law school, right?
Right. And we discussed this, I believe, John, at the board previously, Mr. Hirsch and myself. I read that Sheets decision and I don't have the same view that it might be a problem, but I also am mindful of the fact that we have to get affordable and available housing in this community. And if this particular item here is giving an option to them with, as we say, a carrot and a stick, we haven't gone into the other part of it, I believe, at the last meeting. I just forgotten. But the point is that that decision is factually dissimilar from, in my view, what we're doing here. That's my concern at this point. I'm trying to answer that question, John.
That's all well and good, but all the same, I would like to have a legal opinion from a neutral law firm.
So what's going to happen is when as we do with all of these proposed changes, they get referred to the city attorney's office for an opinion. So if this board decides you want to move something forward, whatever it is you move forward is going to be sent to them automatically for their opinion. And if there's a problem with something, they're going to tell us.
And my other concern is we had this memo from the city attorney and it was never given to the board, and I do not understand why that is.
Because there is no official memo from the city attorney for public consumption.
I see. So it was circulated to the certain members of the board and not to the others, and for whatever reason.
Well, the board has a chairman, and the chairman has certain duties and obligations that not all board members, are involved in as chair. So there was, I believe, a discussion, and there may have been a memo that was a first blush that came out literally days after the decision came out, and there are many different opinions about what it means from many different places. So, in the city attorney, even I mean, he's verbally told me there, no one really knows what it means.
Yeah,
They-
and the thing is, a couple of things, having read it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can read, and the facts of the case are quite different. And I think that if you take it to the very furthest, the nth degree, if in fact that Supreme Court decision could possibly filter down to Connecticut and filter down to Milford, Connecticut, 830G would no longer be constitutional. If you're going to tell us that we're not allowed to mandate affordability, then it goes both ways. If we're not allowed to mandate affordability on the Post Road in Milford, then as we drive that bus back to the Supreme Court, it goes through Hartford, and the 830G regulation therefore does not pass muster. So that's an
excellent point. It very well might be that 830G is an unconstitutional law.
Yeah, it could be, and I don't want to put my heels in the sand on that. So if 5 years down the road, someone comes back, if we do this within the next 6 months, and 5 years from now, somebody comes down and the Supreme Court says it's not valid, then so be it. Then it changes.
But so in other words, you're okay with the city being sued over this?
Exactly.
Well, I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
We're talking about the taxpayers' money here, and frankly, I don't appreciate this cavalier attitude towards the United States Constitution.
Well, it's not the Constitution. It's one Supreme Court decision where the facts are quite different.
The Supreme Court is interpreting the United States Constitution. That's what they do.
I don't want to fight with you.
I don't want to fight with you either, but
okay. You tell me what you want to do.
I think we had. I'm not going to be voting in favor of this for reasons I have already outlined.
Yeah. Well, I think it deserves to have a full hearing in front of the board and a public hearing, and different lawyers can come in and speak to it. And, obviously, if there is a public sentiment that feels this is an overreach, then that voice will be heard. And, we have 10 members, and that will be a vote of majority of the 10 members. It's not just because I have an opinion. I have a passionate opinion about it, but it doesn't mean much more than if I don't convince anybody to agree with me, then I only have one vote, just like everybody else. So.
All right, shall we vote?
Well, I'd like to have some questions, if I could, John, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
David and Steve, the wording of it, for example, the workforce housing incentive bonus, is that something that was come up by staff, or is that something that came out of a working proposal out of Hartford, anywhere else? Just
that's
work housing incentive?
Nope. I came up with that, and because that is the nomenclature that's being used now to describe affordable housing.
Yeah. And when we had that program that was, I think, on the east side of town, where there was we approved that, is that the
you're breaking up. Is it just
was that workforce housing? That's something that came up?
Oh, you're talking about that. They were calling it workforce housing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's not where I'm getting the phrase. I'm getting the phrase from the housing community, because they feel over time that workforce housing is a better description of what it is versus affordable. Because
I appreciate that. Okay. Now the other question I have on this, we haven't been in discussions of multi-use buildings. So say you have on the first floor, you have commercial or businesses, and then the upper 2 floors are housing or residential structures. Would this preclude in this CDD 3 a so-called residential allowed before? And this is allowing for some residential, but it looks like it's only if the structure as built is completely residential and completely multifamily.
Well, a couple of things. We could have whatever language we want in it because it's new. So let me just dig out the current CDD3 language here, which is faster for me to look in my book than to try to pull it up because my computer's about to explode. Let's see here. Some zones, we make a distinction between just housing and mixed use. So let's see what currently CDD has.
Like MCDD requires that no residential be on the street level.
Correct.
And not every zone will have that either now or in the future.
Correct.
I think what we found in certain areas, like even in Walnut Beach, there was a very large project that was funded by the Interior Department decades ago, and the mixed use failed, or
Right.
the commercial. So now it was reimagined. We changed the zone and we changed a few things to permit, more residential, and it is now vibrant. So I think what we learned was in downtown, it makes good sense, and it may make good sense in other areas, but it may not make good sense everywhere. And maybe it's not 100%. It could be the case that in a particular zone where we really want to maintain some either office or commercial retail type stuff, we say if you have, a 20,000 square foot footprint, we want at least 5,000 on the street level with commercial or retail. And I don't know that we're going to address, we're not obviously addressing every zone now, but there could be zones that we want to at least promote a little bit of retail or commercial. But I've seen it fail.
So in this particular zone, the CDD3, the way this would plug in under permitted uses, we have in this area, we have mixed use buildings containing 2 or more permitted uses. So it's as simple as it can get. You can do this as if you want as it is, because it would be a permitted use, or if you want to mix it with any of the other uses that are allowed in that zone, you could.
So it's not a fence.
I don't understand. It's not
Yeah, there's no fence in blocking it from becoming
a mixed use. No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm just reiterating.
Yep, it's like a menu. Choose something from column A and column B, or mix the two. Whatever you want. Did I lose everybody? I hear no noise.
I'm still going. Sadie, are you frozen?
No, I don't think so.
I think some people just stopped talking at the same time.
Yeah, it was very disconcerting.
Silence.
You might drop the room.
Well, I think, and again, it's just my opinion, but we have heard the testimony of All In for Milford with the need for housing. We have data all over that says that there is a housing shortage, and specifically accessible, or people are shying away from affordable because it brings up some negative feelings about those people who come in that are poor or whatever, and they kind of tie it in with subsidized housing and some horror stories of the past 50 years on some of those developments. But I think it's a fully acknowledged need, and I think that this is one way to get some additional housing, and then adding in some affordability, you know, subsequent, you know, without a solid finding that it's not permitted to require some affordability and some, you know, rent control. I mean, rent control's been around for, you know, 100 years in various cities. I don't know how this particular decision changes that. But anyway, I'm not a legal scholar. We'll get that down the road. But anyway, I think this is a step forward. It's something that we have agreed to as a board to look into the various commercial zones to find solutions that will include some accessible housing. And I am in favor of moving this to the full board. And if anyone, I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Against?
Yeah, no, that's insane that you're gonna hear something like that might not be legal and you're just gonna dismiss it. That's great. I think.
Yep. Given the outstanding constitutional issues, I think it would be irresponsible of us to advance this to the committee.
Well, John, you know, I respect your opinion, but I'm gonna put on the record, there's no outstanding constitutional issue.
And that's your opinion. That's not.
Opinion.
That's
That,
not.
I agree.
That's
That's my
not.
opinion.
Yeah, that's insane. That's your opinion. That's not. any-
Well, I mean, the thing is,
Talking
you
about
know,
the US Constitution and
yeah,
ultimately
Mark,
the
you know
taxpayer
what,
dollars.
you know what, I'm gonna interrupt. I mean, at one point, it's
Fine, you were talking
ridiculous
about-
to say it's your opinion to a constitutional law professor. I mean, who else's opinion are you gonna get? You're gonna get your opinion, my opinion, John's opinion?
Like a biased opinion, and it's
Well,
supposed
yeah,
to be.
you know what? This is bullshit.
professional.
This is bullshit. But okay.
Mr.
Hey, the
Chair,
same rules apply. Same rules apply. 2 to 2, it does not go forward. So that's where we stand. This doesn't go forward. And we are at an hour, and I will hear a motion to dismiss.
So moved.
Okay, without objection. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good night. And what I could do is tweak this language and I'll bounce it off of the city attorney. I mean, and instead of doing it as part of something circulating from the board, so I'll do it ahead of time. And you know, if they have a problem with it, obviously we wouldn't go forward. If they tell me that they think it's fine, then I'll let you know, and you know, you can revisit this if you would like to. And it also, just for whatever it's worth, it's in the POCD. I mean, it's part of the POC to put housing in you know, this particular zone. So it would comply with that. So anyway.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's that will at least add some clarity to the issue. So I appreciate that.
nope, we're done. We're adjourned.
Have a good night, everyone.
Have a
Good
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.